Before either the Theban Ogyges or Deucalion of Thessaly, under whose unequal governments the earth was wasted with deluges, there reigned in Epirus the most pious king of all the age. And yet he also, being grown in years, at length submitted to approaching fate. The widow queen, in 7 days, destroyed with grief and sorrow, departed also to fill in her husband's grave. But 1 small hour before her death, for she had long been big, she was brought to bed of twins. But among her dying groans, the nurse's lamentations, and the outcries of the noble ladies that stood around, they all forgot which had the good fortune to be born the first. Although there was a difference in sex, a sundry colour both of hair and skin, and a vast variance in the shape of all their members, yet such a fatal oblivion seized them all, that there was none that dared to vote either for the one or the other. What should a people do that had a firm established law, that from the firstborn of whatsoever sex should be exalted to the succession of the kingdom? The nobles met. The prudent senate soon congratulated themselves for the difference in the sexes of the double birth, because the kingdom had another law, that the brother should have the sister for his wife, which being done, they hoped that there would be no quarrel about inheritance. So, having chosen the most deserving amongst themselves to govern during the minority of the princes, and others to take care of their education, they all departed home. They applauded themselves that they had so easily diverted a danger so threatening to the kingdom. But, alack, by what evil fate shall I say it came to pass that discord should divide the royal family, that differences and strife should there be every day increasing. The prince had red bushy hair, threatening eyes, a stern look, almost a bullock's neck, rough skin, and a rapacious hand. To his playfellows always cruel, but to his sister he bore a mortal hatred. But the princess had a face even to be envied by the nymphs. Her hair was white, but surpassed by her fairer neck. Her eyes were sparkling, and her countenance cheerful towards all. Unless when she, as she was almost always, was struck with horror at her brother's name. The governors of the kingdom knew that unless this antipathy were remedied, no marriage could be made. Therefore, convoking the states again, they often and oftentimes consulted, but found no redress for such great evils. They went into Dodona's grove, but the vocal oaks were silent. They sought the sacred pigeons there, but they were flown away, the one to Delphos, and the other into the furthest regions of the sandy Libya. Ambassadors sent hither return, and nothing is done. In the meantime, the rabble made a tumult, the greater part, disdaining a female empire over them, demanded the prince to be placed on the throne. But the better part, though always less in number, pitying the fortune of the princess and not enduring the injury, betake themselves to her. And now the kingdom's peace had plainly been despaired of, had not the chiefest of the senators, Cleobulus, but not without danger of his head, repressed the raging people. For he promised he could effect the so much desired marriage. He told aloud that from the furthest Ethiopia and the fountains of the Nile he had brought, and dearly too, a love charm, and a potion, and a preservative. Prodigies and wonders, and things unheard of before, are swallowed soonest by the greedy vulgar. So this hydra, being for a time repressed, Cleobulus told the senators, returning to the council house, how matters were. That he despaired of making the marriage he had promised, that he thought it best to blunt their first fury, but not being able to sustain a second shock, he would fly his country, and they should consider what was further to be done. They needed haste. The palace gates were diligently guarded, that nothing should again be spread abroad from thence. In the meantime, there are some sent into Egypt to consult, nay, even to hire, the Magi. The recompense was 2 parts of the kingdom divided into 7. A reward so great soon drew great multitudes, that promised golden mountains, while they themselves gaped after sordid gain. To be brief, it would suffice you to relate their frauds, their cheats, their villainies, their tricks and juggles. While they were doing, some busybody courtiers, throwing papers out by night, betrayed the whole imposture. The raving people besieged the palace. They asked for Cleobulus to be surrendered, but being informed that he had fled to Epirus, they demanded the king, that they might crown him according to the custom of his ancestors. But those who did desire a queen, sending her forth by a back door, carried her to another part of the kingdom to be crowned. Meanwhile, what did the Magi do? Truly they rejoiced that the work they knew not how to perform was taken from them. But raising a great clamour, they go to the governor, and as is the way of mountebanks, complain that the work, being now almost perfected, they were deceived of their wages. They take counsel together among these tumults to break open the treasury by night and take the crowns and royal jewels. The attempt succeeds well. They get aboard a ship which they had also stolen, and passing down the river, they made a stop at the mouth of it. Judging it now a convenient time and place, each one requires to have his share of the booty in his own possession. It is the manner of robbers to quarrel in dividing the spoil, so they came to handy blows. Among these knaves, and in such works all hired men most certainly are, there were, like doves among the crows, 2 honest men. The first was born at Babylon in Chaldea, the other 9 miles from the downfalls of the Nile. The spreading fame of the epirotical affairs, and not the smell of gain, had brought them thither. What should they do? Their counsel about the reconciling of the princess was always rejected, even with laughter, nor yet was their leave given to depart. They consented not to the theft, but when those fled, if they had stayed at court, they might have lost their heads for the villainies of others. But now being in the extremest danger, they call all their magia to their assistance, and while the rest were squabbling, they lift the crown entire together with the jewels into the air, and twice as much as was the whole height of the mast, they by their art kept it suspended there. The fight now ceases, and they tremble. Astonishment and wonder does invade them. The 2 Sophi cast themselves out of the ship, and many others follow, but not knowing the nature of the river, is called Cocytus, they are drowned. The other less malicious thieves, setting sail, arrive in Egypt, but with empty purses. But to those 2 who are truly Sophi, When they by skilful swimming had attained the banks, they go to the Senate, accuse their fugitive companions of the crime, but that they accompanied them only with the intent to save the regalia out of the hands of robbers, which they also affirm that they have done, and that they have placed them aloft in the air at the mouth of the Cocytus, and that moreover now all fear of civil war was vanished, because to whomsoever the realm was destined by the laws of fate, into his hand the crown should willingly and easily descend. The prudent Senate, mindful of the frauds of late, and having too weak a faith for such great miracles, committing the Magi to faithful keepers, they sent one to the king, the other to the queen, and they also sent hasty messengers to survey the mouth of Cocytus. They, returning, relate that all are true, a crown of most unheard of beauty pendant in the air. The astonished senators in haste begin their journey. Coming to the river, they salute the king on the right bank, and the queen sitting on the left, not knowing to which of them this admirable crown was destined, for as yet it did incline to neither part. The Magi are called, since they had hung it there, and let them command it to descend without delay. Denying they had the power to do this, according to a law given by the Sophi and the appointed order of the Fates, by the hasty rabble they are put to death, and their bodies enclosed in lead are cast into the river. Time was not long before the ebbing and the flowing tides carried them into the neighbouring shallows. Out of their flesh grew up the herb marine, a succundanium for a turf to cover the remaining bones. Discoloured weeds and green moss entomb you. But the candidates for the crown, seeing it yet unmoved, begin the lament of the Magi. Of all the divers sent down in the water to seek their carcasses, there none returns. The wisdom of the Senate therefore thinks it fit that there should be erected one empty tomb upon the river's bank, and the second on the other, to which the ordinary priests, officiating the holy rites of the kingdom, should strive to call the Magi's wandering ghosts. In a short time the primroses arising show that the prayers of the just are heard. After this it was perceived either the river was a little shrunk, or that the tombs receded further from it, but this doubt is soon cleared, because even vulgar eyes do judge that the waters are sensibly diminished every day. As they decrease, the competitors, removing ever and anon their tents, press forward on the bank and follow them retiring. The less the river is, the nearer they approach. The nearer that they are, the more they seem alike. For as much as the black exaltations of Cocytus do tan the lovely fairness of the queen, so much the northern winds add beauty to the king, so that they, who were before so much unalike, have now so much resemblance that they are scarce distinguished from one another. Behold another wonder. As they approach, in the same proportion space, the crown descends from above. Now the king is just about to touch it, and now the queen is nigh, and now they touch it. But neither can the sister without her brother, nor can the brother without his sister move it. With their joined forcing, therefore, they carry it between them, and the Senate rejoicing, Cleobulus returning, the people applauding, and the realm triumphing. Dodona's vocal forests now resound again, and instead of doves, the ghosts of the Magi utter prophecies. The willing sister marries to her brother, and the brother takes his sister for his wife. From these nuptials there arises a numerous posterity, which to this day endures, and shall endure as long as this whole orb of earth.